Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Indie Alaska is a groundbreaking series that dives into the lives of people living in the last frontier. Each episode introduces you to colorful characters from around the state. Funding for Indie Alaska is provided in part by Alyeska Pipeline Service Company. Catch the latest episodes at alaskapublic.org.
The National Weather Service.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us here this evening for Sunday's show. I'm Dave Percy. Up on the warning chart here, quite a few areas painted red this afternoon. So starting out here in the west where they go into effect earliest, actually blizzard warning here for the Yukon Delta, St. Lawrence Island, and also up along the Seward Peninsula beginning later tonight and through tomorrow, with gusty winds, strong winds, snow and blowing snow, creating whiteout conditions through these areas. And down here to the south, the Yukon Delta coast, there's a high surf advisory out for that area for later tonight and into tomorrow. And then back to the west, the Kobuk Valley here over the northwest, winter storm warnings out for 4 to 6 inches of snow here from all the way up from the lower Koyukuk Valley up into the Kobuk Valley, and then for tomorrow afternoon here for the Koyukuk Valley down into the central interior. And then tomorrow night, heavy snow warnings out, or winter storm warnings for snow here for the southeastern Brooks Range, 6 to 8 inches of snow, and that warning area covers the upper Yukon Valley as well. And then back to the east here, we've got a winter weather advisory for the northern Kuskokwim Valley there for snow pushing in tomorrow there into the McGrath area, and also a winter weather advisory for 6 to 8 inches of snow here for the Susitna Valley areas, heaviest north of Talkeetna and to the west of the Parks Highway for the heaviest amounts, otherwise looking at 3 to 6 inches there. That'll be starting tomorrow afternoon and then overnight tomorrow night. And then along the entire Alaska range, there's a high wind warning out for tomorrow night. Actually could begin tomorrow afternoon here for the western areas, but looking for winds gusting to 70 miles per hour through the passes of the Alaska range. Moving on to the satellite imagery, Northwest Pacific, you can see the huge storm stands out quite clearly here over the western Aleutians, the low center there, not too far from Shimian at 2, and the front pushing eastward there, and huge cloud shield pushing up at least the high clouds up to St. Lawrence Island along the southwest coast. And that center will be tracking up to the northeast. Strongest winds here ahead of the front gusted to 75 miles per hour at Adak, and seeing 60 to 65 mile an hour gusts there for the Pribilof Islands, and even the Alaska Peninsula this afternoon, winds gusting over 50 miles per hour at False Pass. The strongest winds, though, are back in this area here, and as that low center tracks northward, that band will shift up, and we're looking for 70-knot winds, which are sustained 70-knot winds, hurricane force winds into the western Aleutians tonight. That's sustained about 81 miles per hour in the wind conversion there. Front this afternoon, though, right across, again, pushing east of the central Aleutians, and the wind spreading into the Alaska Peninsula, as I mentioned earlier, and then the high clouds reaching the southwest coast. Clearing out here for Kodiak Island, we had a disturbance come through. Brought some snow to the Kuskokwim Valley up to the Alaska range today, and then kind of another disturbance down to the south with some showers there. And over the southeast coast, trough sliding eastward there, a lot of showers and gusty winds today across the Panhandle. Snow levels lowering gradually, so close to sea level here over the northern areas this afternoon, but the showers beginning to shut off at about the same time there, so not really looking for a whole lot of snow accumulation. And showery conditions down to the south. In fact, looking for it to dry out as high pressure builds in from the west into the Yukon. Today that high was right over the Copper River Basin. We had partly cloudy to mostly sunny skies from the North Gulf Coast across the southeast interior there, right up over the upper Yukon Valley. And then this disturbance with the snow back over the Kuskokwim Valley, and this thing brings some showers across Kodiak Island. And then an area of slight snow there from the northern Koyukuk, upper Yukon Valley, eastern North Slope areas to the Arctic coast, and then the big storm out here to the west. Again, some scattered thunderstorms behind that front with a band of rain in advance of that, spreading up toward the Pribilof Island areas. And we'll see tonight that low center again tracks northeastward. That's going to bring those strong northwest or west to southwest winds to start with, and then backing around to the northwest there for the western Aleutians, again at about 80 miles per hour. And storm warnings here covering just about all of the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, with gales here spreading into the Alaska Peninsula. Again, the snow and blowing snow and blizzard warnings here for the southwest coast up to St. Lawrence Island. High pressure in over the interior. A few lingering showers with that moisture coming through. Possible light snow at times here in northern Cook Inlet tonight. And then that band kind of stretching up to the northeast there, but high pressure over the Copper River Basin. Mostly clear skies, cold temperatures tonight. Drier, colder conditions settling into the southeast coast as this disturbance slides off to the southeast toward the Queen Charlottes, and not really looking for any moisture to get inland with that system. And then for tomorrow, big push to the north and northeast, so snow and blowing snow from the Kuskokwim Valley back across the northwest interior there. Again, out to all the winter storm warnings and blizzard conditions. And when this front passes north of St. Lawrence Island, the winds will begin to diminish a little bit there, but quite windy across Norton Sound, the Seward Peninsula. South to north flow, a lot of warm air surging northward, so rain spreading into the Bristol Bay area. And ahead of this warm front, look for a mixed condition tomorrow afternoon from the southern Kenai Peninsula back to the east. Snow spreading into northern Cook Inlet, and again, this is Sit in the Valley there. And then a lot of showers, another trough with showers there for the Pribilof Islands back to the central Aleutians. Colder air spreading in over the southwestern Bering Sea. Otherwise, mostly clear and cold here over the eastern interior, and mostly sunny for the southeast coast tomorrow, with channeled gusty east and northeast winds there with a Arctic high in over the Northwest Territories. For Tuesday, the low center tracks up across the Bering Sea during the afternoon hours, and the front edging its way eastward here. Good south to north flow, so look for a mixture of precipitation starting over northern Cook Inlet after midnight tomorrow night. Could mix with rain. Definitely rain, Prince William Sound, southern Kenai Peninsula, and Kodiak Island. Snow continues here up the Susitna Valley and back to the northwest. And then that snow spreading in mostly tomorrow night for the southeastern Brooks Range. Kind of a break here over the southwest interiors. That low lifts northward. Winds diminished over the Bering Sea, but still quite breezy. A trough here, scattered rain and snow showers over the Alaska Peninsula. Lots of snow showers and the colder air back out over the Bering Sea. High pressure holds here over the southeast coast and over the northeast Pacific. So that's going to keep the south to north flow going here for a couple of days over southern Alaska. Eventually, warming temperatures will accompany that. And for readings this afternoon, mostly in the 30s, mid to upper 30s over the Panhandle today. 39 down at Klawock, 33 up at Juneau this afternoon, 30 degrees in Cordova. Single numbers with the Copper River Basin, 17 in Anchorage, 35 in Homer, and close to 40 there for Kodiak Island. Single numbers through the Tanana Valley, and 12 degrees at Fort Yukon, minus 24 at Umiat, and well below zero along the Arctic coast as well. And either side of zero here over the northwest part of the state, and teens over the southwest, but Sparivon up to 25. Nome at 4 degrees with Bethel coming in with 11, 33 at King Salmon, and 30s, mostly 30s there for the Alaska Peninsula, 40s out over the Aleutians. Lows tonight, lower 20s over the northern Panhandle at 16 at Yakutat, lower to mid 30s over the southern southeast coast, well below zero, Copper River Basin up into the north central interior, right out to the Arctic coast, and milder here, upper 30s and lower 40s for the Alaska Peninsula. And temperatures will be rising there over the southwest coast. Highs for tomorrow, mid-40s for the peninsula, rising into the 30s all the way up to the Seward Peninsula, staying below zero up over the northeast interior, and a little cooler there over the Copper River Basin, and 20s over the northern Panhandle, mid-30s to the south. Flying weather, VFR in the east all the way down along the southeast coast. IFR spreading into the west here, a big area of it over the northern Bering Sea, right down into the Kuskokwim Valley, advancing eastward to the Alaska Range, then back out to the southwest. Passes looking like this. Anaktuvuk tomorrow, VFR. Adigan looking good as well. Lake Clark and Merrill starting out VFR early, but those conditions coming down rapidly throughout the day. IFR, expect IFR in the afternoon. Same thing for rainy, marginal becoming IFR. Windy, VFR, marginal VFR, becoming marginal, especially on the south entrance. And Isabel, same forecast for Mentasta though, staying VFR throughout the day. Tanita, VFR. Portage, VFR becoming marginal. Chilkoot and White, VFR, both tomorrow and probably Tuesday as well. And for the freezing levels, late tonight, early tomorrow morning, the warmer air coming northward here, 4,000 feet right into Bristol Bay and at the surface right along the coast. And this whole area will be coming northward and shifting eastward throughout the day tomorrow and kind of building in over southern Alaska with some rather higher freezing levels Tuesday. And for icing, occasional widespread moderate rime icing here from the Selawik, Kobuk valleys on down across the northern Kuskokwim and then back out over northwestern Bristol Bay. Upper level wind flow chart showing strong low pushing up into the northern Bering Sea and a good southwest jet at about 120 knots right up into the interior. Higher pressure, again, the whole pattern shifting eastward. This trough will continue to slide off to the southeast and that ridge will build in over the panhandle on Tuesday. For the 9,000 foot winds, 40 to 60 knots southwesterlies here across the southeast Bering Sea, 50 knots south to north along the west coast, diminishing as you head east, turning northwest across the panhandle, and westerlies coming down to 35 knots over the far western Aleutians. Same pattern at 3,000 feet. Wind speeds a little less though, 50 to 60 knots here over the southeast Bering. 35 to 40 knots over the western interior, 40-knot winds over to the Alaska Range tomorrow afternoon, much lighter over the Copper River Basin, northwesterlies over the Panhandle. And for turbulence, possible severe here for the northwest interior areas and also for the Pribilof Islands coming down close to the central Aleutian areas. Otherwise, occasional widespread moderate chop here in the turquoise shaded area. And that whole area advancing eastward, at least to the Alaska Range, if not over south central Alaska tomorrow afternoon. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Northeast winds to 65.
When lifting loads, the weight of the load is centered at the top of the boom, significantly raising the center of gravity. This can act like a large lever and result in capsizing. Do not bring loads fully on deck unless you know that they can be safely landed and your equipment can handle the load.
In my opinion, the primary cause of the instability in this case was that we were fishing for herring and prepared to fish and catch herring, but we weren't equipped the way we should have been. What happened after the set was made and there was a large bag or net full of fish alongside the boat and ready to start transferring the herring into the hold of the boat, the method used was braille. And the size of this set and the time duration of that operation led to herring dying in the net, adding weight to the bottom of the net. The bag of net is right alongside the boat, and that caused increasing weight at the time, caused the boat to roll.
Keep the load as close to the center line of the vessel as possible, and keep the lifted load from swinging. Be conservative when lifting loads in rough seas or when the vessel's stability has been compromised, and get product and gear low as soon as possible. Loads should always be secure.
We've had that thing on the side of the boat before, but this felt a little more severe, especially when I know that the bow of the skiff was still centered. It was just the stern that was on the corner. There was a possibility we had some things in the hatch. I know we had a net, possibly a few 100 pounds of something down there had tumbled over to the port or the starboard side also. And now it's there. Of course it's crappy out. We don't want to pull the tarp and the hatch off. of which exposing an open hole in big weather to go down and see if there's something that needs moving. It was dangerous out there I mean, I was in a float suit and all, but it was dangerous to do all this stuff. I ended up coming in telling the guys, I can't move it. There was a decision that could have been made. We could have gotten rid of it, shuttled it, get it off the deck. Hindsight now, yeah, get rid of it. It wasn't my $40,000 skiff to be launching. It was the captain's.
A load that shifts rapidly changes the center of gravity. At sea, power blocks, skiffs, fishing gear, booms, and rigging should be kept secure at all times. Secure gear before you think you need to. Over time, vessels change equipment and get altered for other fisheries. Whenever making major changes, consult with a naval architect to ensure that you are not making changes your vessel was not designed to handle. Weight creep can also develop gradually with small additions over time. It's a good idea to keep a log of the additions you make over time. The log should be reviewed periodically by a naval architect to reassess stability. And every 6 to 12 months, get rid of extra gear or equipment no longer needed. Beware of altering vessels for fisheries they were not designed for without consulting a naval architect.
Once they reach this magical 2% weight change, and it doesn't have to be an even exchange, it's just 2% overall weight change of the vessel, they really should have their stability reevaluated.
Fishing gear can get hung up on the bottom and cause the vessel to capsize.
Will you take precautions for a hanging up situation?
Keep knives handy to cut away gear. And when appropriate, use rigging that will break away before a capsize. Try to stay clear of large kelp patches which can catch stabilizers or birds and cause a vessel to heel and downflood. Another reason to keep doors and hatches secure. For vessels that cannot use breakaway gear, have a means to rapidly release winch brakes or clutches, or be able to cut cables.
You would have winches where you could control the tension, and above a certain level, the winches would automatically release cable and allow the boat to move.
The seamanship of the helmsman is of vital importance in heavy weather. Especially if stability is being compromised, make sure your most experienced person is at the helm. A good helmsman can anticipate and respond to seas more effectively than an autopilot. In heavy seas, slow down to reduce damage to windows and reduce icing if present. Beware of following seas. They may be more comfortable, but they are more challenging for stability. Rough following seas can result in broaching and capsizing and should concern anyone at the helm. Quartering seas are even more hazardous.
Trying to keep our stern into the swells was causing us to get a little more and more off course. And I realized that we were going to need to drive, in order to stay the course, we were going to have to drive a little more starboard, which was going to present us a little more broadside to the weather, which I knew was dangerous.
If seas are extreme, keep the vessel's bow into or quartering into the seas to minimize water on deck and vessel motion. The use of a sea anchor is an excellent way to keep the bow into seas if you lose propulsion or steering. Secure doors and hatches to prevent flooding. Anticipate worsening weather and make efforts to improve stability before weather strikes.
There's quite a few things that I learned at that time. First and foremost, if it says storm warning, stay at port, don't go. It's not worth it.
Secure gear in anticipation of heavy seas. Avoid pumping from full tanks to empty tanks, which will increase resurface effect or moving loads to correct a list without knowing the cause. This has resulted in many capsizings. Put your most experienced helmsman on the wheel in heavy weather. When acquiring a new vessel, ask to have your stability guidelines explained by a naval architect.
Basically the same trim in the boat that you started out with.
Be sure to review these guidelines, and when entering a new fishery or substantially modifying your vessel, have your guidelines updated. Capsizing is one of the consequences of poor operations that can affect stability. The 9 areas of operational stability include: always load your vessel within the stability guidelines of your vessel. Avoid having loose fluids or loose fish on your vessel that can quickly change your center of gravity. Keep water out of your vessel by the use of properly maintained and closed watertight doors, hatches, and bulkheads. Avoid weather that can produce icing conditions, and when you can't, work at preventing icing from building up. When lifting a load, keep it as close to the center line as possible and keep it from swinging. Make sure that loads cannot shift with strong bin boards and well-secured gear. Log the additional weight of gear and alterations and consult with naval architects about their effects on stability. In case gear hangs up, be sure to have a way to quickly cut gear free or release winches. Heavy seas present an increasingly dynamic challenge to your vessel's stability. Finally, even a vessel with updated stability guidance will only be as safe as how it is operated by the crew. Ensure that all crew members understand these procedures and follow them. The lives of the crew and the welfare of their families depend on it.
It's a constant dynamic force with stability. Their center of gravity is constantly changing as they add fish, burn fuel, use water, and the weights are shifting fore and aft. They have constant changes in the way the vessel rides.
Trying to keep a safe boat, it should be pretty easy if you've been on the water a while, but if you get careless and you just don't think about some things. It is serious though when you get out there to see how bad Mother Nature wants to stir the pot. You better hope that you're at the top of your game with your safety and how your vessel operates.
Northerly winds at about 25 tomorrow bring some modified Arctic air down in over the southeast coast, but it won't be blasting through Lynn Canal like it can otherwise does as cold high pressure builds in over the Yukon. And then for Tuesday, kind of turning south in the afternoon at about 10, pretty light variable winds over the inside waters, northwesterlies 15 to 20 knots along the coast. Prince William Sound and northern Cook Inlet northeast at 15. Southerlies 30 knots here for the Barren Islands, Kodiak Island, becoming gales tomorrow afternoon for Shelikof Strait. And then the Tuesday outlook, gales, Kamishak Bay and southern Cook Inlet, southerlies at 35 knots and small craft advisories everywhere else, more southeasterly for the North Gulf Coast and Prince William Sound. Bristol Bay, south winds 40 knots tomorrow, 45 knots here for the Alaska Peninsula, and a whole gale there southwest of Kodiak Island. And then for Tuesday, those winds turn southwest, diminish here down to 20 knots for the peninsula, coming down to 20 knots for Bristol Bay. Holding on to the gales here, southerlies in a tighter gradient there southwest of Kodiak. And for the Aleutians, again, tonight we've got 70-knot winds coming into the western areas. And then those storms tomorrow, coming down to storms tomorrow and actually dropping off to gales tomorrow afternoon for the western Aleutians. Otherwise, Adak and Atka, southwest, 50 to 60 knots. Strong gales here all the way across the eastern Aleutians. And then the outlook for Tuesday, diminishing quite a bit here, down to 15 to 20 knots for the eastern Aleutians. 20-knot winds out to the Adak area, and then small craft advisories to the west. And for the southwest coast, southerlies 40 to 45 knots tomorrow with 16 to 18 foot seas. southerly storms for the Pribilof Islands. Seas up to 30 feet there, southeast coming down to 40 knots for the northern Bering Sea, and at least starting the day out southeast at 50 knots there for St. Lawrence Island until that front swings northward, and then they'll diminish. And then southwest at about 40 for the next day there, and that'll extend actually gales all along the southwest coast. Seas 17 to 18 feet, small craft advisories for the Pribilofs, and westerly gales from the northern Bering Sea. For the Arctic coast, southerlies for the central coast and pretty light west to southwest winds for the east side. And we've got brisk wind advisories here for the western coast. Gales east 40 from Wales up to Cape Thompson. And then for Tuesday, small craft advisories here all the way up to Cape Beaufort. Brisk wind advisories for the remainder of the Arctic coast. There are 25-knot winds all the way over to Demarcation Point. And for tonight, there's a big storm pushing northward. Again, snow blowing, snow increasing. Blizzard conditions, the Yukon Delta, blizzard warning out for St. Lawrence Island tonight. And then tomorrow that will push in and bring that warning into the Seward Peninsula. Winter storm warnings here for the western interior. Snow spreading into northern Cook Inlet and the Susitna Valley tomorrow afternoon. Warmer conditions and rain. Eventually reaching even the Yukon Delta area. Clear and colder here over the Panhandle and pretty fair in the east. And then that front edges over to about the Alaska Range or western Cook Inlet on Tuesday with a mixture of rain and snow, becoming just snow back here to the northwest, and gusty winds with that low center weakening and tracking through the Bering Strait. So pretty gusty westerlies for St. Lawrence Island, southerlies for the Seward Peninsula. There is a snow and blowing snow. Stays dry and cool over the Panhandle. Well, that's a look at the weather.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.